Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast.
Hi, I'm Batsheva Frankel from Overthrowing Education, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to be recording, wait for it, episode 199. What in the world? That is crazy even to say and to think about that this podcast has been around for that long. Like, I am just mind blown. Next week, I'm actually going to be talking in a special episode. You got to wait to hear it. It's really, really exciting. But in that episode, I mentioned about the beginnings of this podcast. And I don't think I've ever even shared how it even got started. But I am just blown away at the amazing guests I've been able to talk to over the past few years and the solo episodes I've recorded that have come from my heart and been things that I wanted to share with music teachers, things that you may be going through. And I understand everybody can't relate to every episode. And that's the way I am with a podcast. When I listen to podcasts, and I listen to a lot of them of different types of podcasts, some episodes I need and other ones I'm like, oh, I don't really need that. And that's my goal is with every episode I record, whether it's just me talking or whether it's with a guest, for you to get what you do need. And honestly, sometimes you won't need an episode right away, but maybe 6 months later, you're like, okay, I know Jessica recorded a podcast episode about whatever, XYZ. So here we are sitting at episode 199. And what I want to do to celebrate episode 200 is, first of all, I said next week, be on the lookout. I have a special episode coming out you don't want to miss. It's really exciting. It's our 200th episode celebration. And also what I'm doing is I am going to do a giveaway. So for listeners of the podcast, what you get to do is if you tag me on Instagram at Jessica Peresta, or if you don't hang out on Instagram and you're on Facebook, that's okay too. You can just tag my Facebook page, The Domestic Musician. And I want you to post about your favorite podcast episode, or you can create a post talking about what you like about the podcast overall, or you can talk about the podcast and tag friends in the comments. So there's just a few different ways. If I see you talking about the podcast, sharing a favorite episode, whether it's to your stories or on your feed, I don't care either way, or you're tagging friends about the podcast, I'm going to enter your name into a giveaway. I'm going to give away 2 copies of my book, Make a Note What You Really Need to Know About Teaching Elementary Music. And I'm also going to give away 2 30-minute one-on-one coaching calls with me. So I'm really excited about it. So it's super easy to participate. Like I said, just make sure I see your post. You can tag me and make sure if I see your post, your name is inserted into the giveaway. The giveaway goes from today through May 3rd, and I will let you know if you won by messaging you or emailing you, or we'll figure that part out. But so I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much for your support for the podcast over the years. For my loyal listeners, those of you who are new here, it does not go unnoticed how much support you have given me. Being a podcaster is something that I'm very passionate about, but it is also something that's very It has to be a passion because I do this for free. I'm just being honest with you. Podcasting is a free gig, and it is something though that I love doing. I love connecting. I love sharing. I love supporting music educators any way I can. And part of the reason I started this podcast was because I wanted to have you be able to connect with me by hearing my voice. And I always want you to feel like you're joining in the conversation by hearing me talk. If you've been in my world for any amount of time, I have been owning the domestic musician, the business for 6 years now. And so I started with a blog. And so speaking of the blog, this podcast episode that I'm going to be recording today that you're about to listen to is also a blog post that you can check out in the show notes or at thedomesticmusician.com. So with all that said, today's episode is 4 ways to reframe negative thoughts about teaching. I wanted to record this episode because this school year, working with hundreds and hundreds of music teachers every week, which I'm so blessed and honored to be able to do that, I hear the same things coming up all the time is I'm overwhelmed, or I don't want to do this anymore, or I can just tell the joy is gone, or you feel depleted and you used to not feel that way. So what I want to do is share with you 4 ways that you can reframe negative thoughts. And I really, really thought through what I wanted to say in this episode because I wanted it to be applicable. I want it to be strategies that you can begin implementing even today or tomorrow or next week. And that is where we're going today. So number 1, I want you to remember your why, and I want you to go over that again and again. I have talked about your why a lot on this podcast, to be honest. But the reason I wanted to start with that is it's easy to forget why you became a music teacher on the days that, let's be honest, that just suck. You're not going to stop in the middle of a hard class and go, why did I become a music teacher? Okay, I love teaching music as kids are going berserk in your classroom, right? But what I want you to think about is when you're driving home or when you're laying in bed at night on one of those hard days, I want you to think about before you even became a music teacher, in whatever way that looks like for you, remember how excited you were. You're probably unsure. These are all the feelings I felt, not knowing what to expect. And you were also really looking forward to meeting your students. But maybe it didn't pan out the way you hoped it would, or it's harder than you thought, or a pandemic happened and it caused you to lose your joy. It feels like, honestly, every week things are pivoting and changing and you can't keep up. Of course, that's going to be hard. Of course, that's going to cause you to have negative thoughts. Of course it is. You're human. But let's go back to the basics, which is remembering your why. Maybe your why is buried super deep under there somewhere. Maybe you don't even remember why you're teaching music anymore. Maybe you've just been doing it so long that you're like, I don't even know if I have a why anymore. I'm just doing this because this is what I've always done. I don't know what else I would do. And that's okay. That's okay. But somewhere deep in there, there is a why and why you chose to be a music teacher, why you're in the position you're in. Take the time to reflect about it. Write it on a sticky note somewhere. Post it on your wall if you need to. Remind yourself why you're in this career when you could be doing anything else. Now, this does not need to be a paragraph. It doesn't need to be a dissertation. When I say write it on a sticky note, your why could be one word, one phrase, one sentence. And have it somewhere posted so whenever you're having those days that you can see it clearly and remind yourself, okay, I'm doing this because I love it. I got into teaching music because I know it changes lives. Whatever that phrase is for you. I'm just giving some examples. Number 2, this is a big one. And this is one that most of you listening right now can probably relate to in one way or another. Know that the hard days and years will come. There will be hard to reach students. There will be times lessons bomb. But one bad moment can cause our thought patterns to spiral and cause us to believe things that aren't true. Oh my gosh, guys, this is huge for me. One negative comment. I will get right now one negative email, one negative message, and it makes my brain, instead of just saying, this is one person I will immediately go, "Oh my gosh, all these people think this." Or, "What if everyone thinks this? I should just give up. I should just quit." In the classroom, one student says, "I hate music. I don't like this song. This is boring." And it causes you to immediately probably go into this negative thought spiral of, "Oh, they all don't like this. I'm not doing a good enough job. What if everybody's thinking the same thing, but they're just not saying it?" But these thought patterns are so dangerous because it causes you to think things that probably there may be a little validity to it, but they're probably not true. So for me, if negative thoughts seep in, I have to remind myself this is one moment in time. I pray about it and I let it go. If it's out of my control, I have to let it go because otherwise it will seep into my mind. It will fester. It'll make my thoughts spiral and I can have my whole day ruined by just one little moment. And I'm just being honest with you. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. But it's not always that easy, is it? It's really not. There might be new strategies you need to try with your students. Maybe when it comes to teaching lessons or classroom management, maybe there is. Maybe there's just some new strategies you need to try. Maybe you're like, "But Jessica, I've tried 100 strategies." Then try 101. It's something's going to click eventually. Do I have my magic 8 ball that says when that's going to happen? No, of course not. But something will click eventually. You just have to keep working at it and trying. You might need to sit down and journal your thoughts about what's causing you stress. Maybe you can't even pinpoint what that is. Maybe you're like, there's a lot of things causing stress. So write all of them down. Then what I want you to do is choose to focus on one thing at a time that you're going to help reframe your mind around and change the negative thought patterns around. And then when other stress comes in, it's not going to make you do that negative thought spiral because you're going to feel like you have a little bit more of a handle on one area. If you can't pinpoint what's causing the stress, it's okay to talk to a friend, your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, I don't care who it is, neighbor, your dog. I talk to my dogs all the time. I have 3 now, by the way. I don't know if I've ever told anybody that. We have 3 dogs now. That's another story for another day. But it's also okay to talk to a therapist. I went to therapy recently. It was wonderful. I was a little nervous. I had never done it before. But sitting there talking to someone who didn't know me from Eve and being able to just talk about my thoughts and what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, and have them really listen and give some really good feedback helps so much. Being able to just kind of get it out of my mind. And that's maybe what you need to do. So just think about it. What do you need? It's easy to feel beat down and defeated, but I've said it on this podcast before, and I'll continue saying it for probably a lot of future episodes. One bad moment, day, several days, weeks, month, or the entire school year doesn't make you a bad teacher. There's things out of your control. Hello, pandemic, right? Hello, shifting mask requirements. Hello, kids can sing and can't sing, play recorders, can't play recorders, all the things. But there's also things you can control, like your attitude, your mindset, your emotions, your feelings, the way you react to certain situations. Those are things you can control. So realizing, number 2, that the hard days, hard moments, hard weeks, hard everything is going to come, but don't let your negative thoughts spiral. Stop yourself from thinking those things and keep moving forward. Number 3 is be part of the solution. And what I mean by this is if something hasn't worked in your classroom this year, take the time when you have time, which is probably never, but when you have time on the weekend or you have time at night or you have time in your car. I do my best thinking in my car and in the shower. The rest of the day is crazy. It's like a snowball. I don't have a lot of time to stop and think either. I really don't. So find those just 5 minutes where you can stop and think and process. So if something hasn't worked in your classroom this year, process, think about ways it can be improved. Instead of complaining about this or that student, talk to their general classroom teacher. Maybe you need to talk to the resource teacher. Maybe you can talk to the art or PE teacher. Maybe you can ask your administrator, your counselor. It doesn't matter who you ask. Talk to another teacher. Sometimes they're doing something with a certain student, a strategy is working great that maybe you just have never thought about. And maybe it won't work the exact same way in the music room, but maybe it will. But it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask about a certain child if you need strategies for them and something you're doing is not working. Don't ever feel like that makes you, that's the sign of you not being good enough. Or, well, I should be expert enough to know what to do, but sometimes you're not. And that's okay. It's okay to admit defeat sometimes. And it's okay to admit that you don't know how to deal with every single child the way you think you should. So ask for help if you need to. You can even talk to that particular student. If something's not working with this particular child, talk to them. Ask them, what can how can we help you succeed in music? What's not working in here? Where do you feel like you're getting stuck? Or what, you know who you can talk to and who you can't, and who you need strategies around and who you don't. So just taking the time to process that is really going to help you go far. Let's say there's a ton of talking during your lessons you're teaching. Maybe you need to restructure what's happening in the class time. Maybe you have tried that and maybe you feel like it's starting to work, but there's just always that one super talkative class. You can probably identify who I'm talking about right now. Off the top of your head, you're probably already thinking about that class. If so, what you do with that class maybe won't look the same as what you do with the other classes. Maybe you have to change your strategy and your approach with that certain class. They are just not going to be able to do music class the same way that the other classes can. And that's okay. It's not a sign of you not being a good enough teacher. It's just called meeting your students where they're at. You just got to meet them where they're at. And if they're not learning the way you're teaching, sometimes we got to take ourselves out of it and make it student focused and focus on the way they learn best. Maybe you're spending too long or not enough time during the middle, beginning, or end of class time. When are you losing your students' interest? What are ways they can stay more engaged next school year? Let's say your upper elementary students, this is a big one, and a lot of you can probably relate to this. Let's say your upper elementary students just are not really loving to sing, especially those fifth grade kiddos, right? What are ways you can bring more singing in? Or blasphemy, what if you didn't do as much singing anymore with your fifth grade students? It's okay. It's okay to change things up. It's okay to pivot what you thought is the way you would be doing things. But if it's not working, instead of hitting your head on a brick wall constantly and feeling frustrated and defeated, sometimes you need to teach the way your students learn. You think about that. Think through that. What has been working great and what is not working so great in here anymore? These are just a few examples that I gave. But with anything that's a problem in your eyes, there is always a solution. It's not going to always be an overnight fix, but it's all in trying, retrying, 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 and retrying. One day, something's going to stick. It took me forever to get my first group of fifth graders to buy into music class. What finally ended up working was implementing what I called Fun Friday. Now, I did see my students every other day because we did not have an art teacher and we had PE. So basically, and we had library, but the library wasn't in the rotation. The way my school did the schedule was interesting, but it was basically me and PE rotating the students every other day. We had a small school. So I would see basically my students every other Friday. So what I did is I started implementing Fun Friday. And what we did is the last 15 to 20 minutes of class, and this especially worked great with upper elementary, I would let them do either a mini talent show, and we would talk about it for 2 weeks. What are we going to do for the next Fun Friday? Okay, mini talent show. Okay, the next Fun Friday. Okay, this is the time you get to bring music in you like to listen to. And yes, back in those days, it was still CDs. And then, or we would do a choice day. You get to choose activities to do today, or it would be a lot of music games on technology, whatever, or even non-technology music games for that matter. But for 2 weeks, we would focus on getting to that Fun Friday, getting to the last 15, 20 minutes of class to enjoy something they earned. It really started working well because if they started acting like a hot mess or they started not paying attention, or I had those super talkers, you know who I'm talking about, all I'd have to remind them, I would sometimes just have to say the phrase Fun Friday. You should have seen it was like a pin dropped in the room. Now, this did not work like that right away. It was not an immediate fix. It took time to turn the ship around. But once the ship started turning, it course corrected and it kept going the way it was supposed to, and it worked great. Maybe that is something you can think about. Maybe it's not a fun Friday for you, but maybe there's just something. You're like, something's got to work. Something's not working. And maybe you're not getting the buy in from your students. Please know that it takes time. Please don't give up. Please remember when I said keep retrying and retrying and retrying. Your confidence and your continuing to pivot and shift and change and adapt is what's going to cause you to have success that you're so desperately wanting. You just have to keep going and keep trying. And number 4 is identify what's bringing you down mentally. If it's listening to teachers gripe in the teacher's lounge about everything, stop eating in there. I used to eat in my car. I would eat in my classroom by myself. And it's okay to do that. You're not offending anyone. You're not hurting anyone's feelings. And there's no rule saying you have to eat in the teacher's lounge. If you're busy comparing yourself to the way other elementary music teachers are doing things, then stop. Then stop checking social media so much. Stop asking other teachers what they're doing. Stop trying to do things the way others are doing and focus on your students. Focus on the way you teach. Focus on what you're comfortable doing. I'm just going to be honest. I have a Facebook group. A lot of you listening are in the free Facebook group, Elementary Music Teacher Community. I have a Facebook group for my membership site, for my Harmony membership. I have an active Instagram account. I'm on TikTok. I'm new there and I don't know what I'm doing, but I am there. I have every social media platform you can think of. But lately, I'm not on there as much. I do check my Facebook groups, but I'm not in there posting as much. I'm not checking things as much. I just haven't been as active on social media. And I know a lot of you can relate to that. But here's the thing. It's okay to have that go in seasons. And wasn't even in my notes of what to talk about today, but it's okay if social media goes in seasons for you. It's okay if sometimes you're really active and you really want to be on there and you really want to check what others are doing and you really want to form conversations and have conversations and form relationships. And it's okay if you're mentally at the point where you're like, I just kind of need a break from social media. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. So listen to what you need. It's okay. I'm even running Facebook groups. I'm the host in there and I haven't even been in there as much. And it's okay. It's okay to put yourself first and know what you need. Another thing, if you feel like your mornings are rushed or you're not getting enough time to unwind at the end of the day, this can definitely bring you down mentally. Something you can identify that's bringing you down. So identify steps to help you get things ready the night before, or maybe not stay at school as long, which I know is easier said than done. There's always something else that you can do. Always, 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 always. But get to the point where you can figure out how to wrap up. How can I just move that to another day? Eventually, your lesson planning will go smoother, which that's the exact reason I have my whole membership site is to give you done for you lesson plans and a community there you can talk about things with. But maybe you just need to develop some systems and some better strategies and to help you organize your lessons and to plan better and to figure out what you need to do each week so you're not staying at school as long. Maybe it's you're having a hard time juggling work and home life. It's a lot to handle. I can identify this in a big way, friend. Okay. I was in the classroom. I was a working mom, juggling all the things and getting to daycare to pick up my son and feeling the guilt about getting there late some days because I had to stay at school late or he would have ear infections and I couldn't go to school, and getting a sub, as you know, is impossible sometimes. And then you feel guilty about that. And so I really, really, really struggled with the work home life. Now transitioning to being a business owner and I work from home. There's some weeks I work 50 hours a week. And on top of that, I'm in grad school. And on top of that, my kids two of them are in sports. And on top of that, I have a child who's on the autism spectrum. And on top of that, we have church activities. And I could go on and on and on. If I could just like literally screenshot my calendar and show you on this podcast, I would. Maybe I wouldn't. But anyways, it's insane. It's like literally so full. It's like blacked out pretty much. But what I'm trying to say is I can relate to the really mentally struggling sometimes with work-home life balance. But here's what's worked for me. what works really well is realizing that life is never going to be perfect. If I'm giving myself a hard time about not being the perfect mom, then I'm going to let those negative thought spirals we talked about earlier start occurring in my brain. You're not a good enough mom. You're not present enough. You shouldn't be doing all that. Who are you to not, show up to your child's school and volunteer for PTA, like all these other moms, like all this stuff. You guys, like, it's like, let it go. All these negative thoughts. And on the flip side of that, if I'm being in mom mode and I'm over here having all these work obligations and I feel like I'm really behind in all the things, then my mind will start thinking about that. Like, oh, look at you, not able to like handle all this. You have these emails backed up you haven't responded to, and you have all this stuff that's due and you haven't really gotten it done. And look at you, you're just like really struggling in life. But here's the thing. Life's never going to be perfect. It ebbs and flows. You're going to have moments you can fully devote to your family and friends and children. And other times you have to get work done. It's about communicating with those in your life you need to communicate with, whether it's at work or home, giving yourself tons of grace, and letting go of unrealistic expectations you may have put on yourself. So identifying what brings you down mentally is super important, and it's going to look different for everyone. I hope this episode was helpful. I hope that you understand that you're not alone in the way you're feeling, that you're doing an amazing job. Give yourself credit. Showing up every day and teaching music, especially in the last few years, is something you should be hugely proud of yourself about. Reframing negative thoughts about teaching is something that I think is so important. Following these 4 steps, maybe you don't need all 4, but pick the one that you can really apply to your life. And I really want you to keep moving forward. So let me know what you think about this episode. Remember to tag me on Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, wherever you hang out, and tell me about your favorite episode or favorite episodes, or which ones you've gotten the most out of. And I'm so excited to celebrate our 200th episode next week. And thank you so much for supporting the podcast, for being a listener. And I cannot wait to continue moving forward this next year. Have a great day. Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook group. Come on over and join us there, where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.